I'm Jim Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today. Coming up later on, our infamous roundtable gets together. We'll see what they have to say about a wide range of topics, but between now and then, we have some great guests and information coming your way. For one thing, we're going to meet a successful businesswoman whose restoration med spa is now offering a very unique and innovative treatment that we're going to tell you about. Plus, speaking of innovative, maybe this is just weird, there's a carriage made of candy that we're going to show you. And I'm not going to say anything more about that. I'll let the folks from UNCG explain that later on. Anyway, we've got a lot more coming too in addition to that. But first, we turn our attention to the fall elections coming up in just a few weeks. No, we're not going to tell you who to vote for, but we do want to tell you to vote. And the man that's going to help me do that is somebody you see here every week on the roundtable. Keith Granberry is, of course, founder of Helping Hands Consultants out around the nation, helping people get registered to vote all the time. Welcome to the show, sir.
Glad to be here.
You're always here anyway, but
I am.
Officially welcome you. Why are so many people not registered to vote?
Well, that's a good question, Jim. I think a lot of times people feel like their vote doesn't count. And I'm here to tell them that every vote counts, and we have to get people specifically in the underserved and underrepresented communities to get to understand that locally, if they get involved in this process, they can make a difference.
There's, I'm wondering if for people to say, well, okay, well, suppose I go out and vote. How is taking my time to go vote actually going to change my community?
Well, it changes in a lot of different ways. I mean, everything that happens in your community is based on policies and procedures. And the people in power are people that you put in power. You elect these people to follow your rules and regulations. So if you don't vote, you don't have any say in what they do and what they don't do. So if you don't like their policies and you don't vote, then how are you going to make changes? So we got to get them to understand and also be educated on who's in office to elect the people that will represent them best.
And a lot of the changes are made by the people that will be on the ballot this fall, because it's not a presidential election, it's not a gubernatorial, but you got people running for state legislature, and that's critical there in terms of gerrymandering
Absolutely.
And everything else. What is you sent me an email one day and you were talking about civic engagement. What do you mean?
Well, getting involved in the community. I mean, a lot of times the people in the community can make a world of difference. And I'll give you an example. My grandmother lives in Chicago, as you know, in Southside Chicago. In parts of Southside Chicago, it's almost impossible to go there based on the crime. I mean, many times a weekend, 70 or 80 people are being shot. But if you go in her community, based on the people getting involved in her community, it's one of the safest communities in all of Chicago. Why is that? Because the people in that community, they care about the community, they watch out, and they get involved in who's their representative, whether it's a state representative or city councilman. They vote, and these people know that, so they protect that territory. That's what I'm talking about.
I want to talk to you about voter apathy for just a second. You and I talked about how right after the election with Hillary and Trump, there was all these thousands of millennials that crowded into the streets of Portland, Oregon, and stopped business and all this stuff. And, oh, we're mad that Hillary didn't win. And the poll was taken of those millennials in the streets, and 70% of them hadn't bothered to vote the day before. My question is, you travel around the world a lot. You've worked in Africa and other countries. Is this a problem everywhere, or are we just sort of unique that we just don't vote as much as we should?
No, this is a problem everywhere. I've done elections in Africa, in Lesotho, where half the women did not vote, and where women rights are very restricted, in places like Nigeria, where over 50% of the population is between the ages of 18 and 24. Many of these young people have not got engaged in an election that could choose their future. So it's just not the U.S., it's all around the world, and we've got to get people to understand that if you don't vote, it doesn't count, and you cannot complain.
Yeah, don't complain.
Don't complain.
We have a few seconds left. On Election Day, what's the most important message you want to leave for everybody, quickly?
Well, the most important is vote. Get out there and vote your conscience. I'm not telling you to vote Democrat or Republican, but I am saying get out and vote, and that everyone in their community should be registered to vote.
Up on screen, groundgameinnovations.com is a group that Keith's been working with nationwide. You can check that out and find out what they're up to, but please make sure you vote in November. We will see you later on the roundtable.
Absolutely.
All right. Keith Granberry. We'll be right back after this. On Triad Today, so glad everybody could stay with us for this, because we have a very special guest, first-time guest here to Triad Today, a lovely lady. I want you to meet her right now. Marisa Faircloth is founder and owner of Restoration Med Spa. You've probably seen ads about that, and now you see the owner and founder live in the flesh. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Now, first of all, I want to get something out of the way here because sometimes I'll forget to ask this. Let's be clear. Now, you have more than one office, right? Where are your locations?
My main location is in Winston on Executive Park Boulevard right off Stratford Road, and then we have a satellite location in Greensboro.
Okay, good. I thought that was right, but I want to make sure. Now, what is if somebody comes up to you and say, hey, I see these ads and everything, what is a med spa? How would you define a med spa?
So the American Med Spa Association defines a med spa as a hybrid between a medical aesthetic clinic and a day spa. And that means we have different categories of things that we do. We do a more medical, clinical procedures in a more spa-like setting, but we have to have 4 tenets. And one of those is that we have to have a licensed medical physician that oversees us.
Right.
All of our staff has to be trained, experienced, and credentialed. We also have to have a licensed healthcare professional overseeing them on premises at all times, and we have to do non-surgical aesthetic procedures.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, you'll drive by these strip centers and shopping centers and you'll see places pop up all the time. So, we're a spa, we're a med spa, we're this, we're that. Come on in, get your nails done, get a massage, let us put needles in you and whatever. And so what you're saying is it's important to check out, maybe we'll give your website later, but check out people's website, check out customers, patients, talk to them about what you've done. That's important, right?
Absolutely. There are multiple different places popping up, and you're right. There are places all over the place that are doing procedures that they're not really licensed to do, and you should do your research. You should make sure that whoever you're going to is credentialed, they are licensed, and they're experienced in the procedures that you're going to do. Just because they have a license does not mean they've done the procedures that you're there for.
Yeah, is there anything new in injectables? And I'm also wondering about something, I think you sent me an email one day about something called threading. So bring me up to speed about threading.
Okay, so
what is that?
Injectables or threading? So threading.
Well, let's start. Give me a quickie on injectables so people understand what that means.
So injectables are different things that we inject into the skin to create a better aesthetic look, and one of them is Botox.
Right, I heard of that.
That relaxes wrinkles, so that where you have a muscle contraction, it relaxes that out and smooths it out.
Right.
The other is fillers. We use fillers to literally fill a void in the skin.
Right. I have a lot of wrinkles, but I just sit on my coat real tight, and then it pulls it down.
That works too.
No, right. But now, what about? But I thought you were going to talk about that with Botox and everything. But seriously, what about this threading thing that I got this email about? What does that mean?
So threading is a minimally invasive procedure where we use a thread, a suture, like what you would use internally to sew up a surgery, and we thread it into the skin, lay it underneath the top layers of skin, and lift and pull the tissue up into a better position.
Instead of cutting off and doing all this stuff.
Exactly. So we're doing a non-surgical facelift. We're lifting that tissue and we're holding it into position and providing a scaffold for your body to provide collagen around it to lift it and heal it into that position.
I think are you the only ones around that are doing that with the med spas? That's okay. Now, you're also, I want to, before time runs out, you're very active in the community. You have these monthly events. What kind of events are they and where do they take place?
So they take place in our Winston-Salem office, and every month we hold an educational event. It's a different topic every month, but I feel like people need to be educated onto the procedures that they want to do. They need to know what is the best procedure for them, and if it is the best procedure for them. So what we do is we offer free educational seminars.
This open to the public?
Open to the public. Anyone can come.
All right, up on screen, a couple things, and tell me if I get this wrong, www.restorationmedspa.com. I'm going to say this again for our radio listening audience, WSJS, restorationmedspa.com. And also 336 is the area code 999-8295. Is that the main number?
That is correct.
999-8295, and that's up on screen. But Marisa, I appreciate you stopping by and
Thank you so much.
Educate me a little bit.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back. Triad Today, and always glad when this gentleman can stop by and give us some tips on dental health, and so let's introduce him to you right now. On my right, Dr. Nick Capehart, he's with Ardmore Dentistry. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Good to be here.
You sent me an email. We said, let's go into some areas here that not too many people cover on shows like this. I'm going to start out with a stupid question. which is what are dentures in terms of, are they real teeth? Are they fabricated teeth? What are they? We don't spend a lot of time on this, but what are they comprised of? What are they?
There's no stupid questions.
Okay.
That one's borderline.
Go ahead.
So dentures are a way to replace teeth. And they're a specific type of prosthesis, and that's what it is. Like a prosthesis, you get to replace part of your leg, an arm. It's a prosthesis that simulates a part of the body. And dentures are plastic, and they go in your mouth and they replace missing teeth.
What are the multiple purposes? I guess there's obviously purpose cosmetic, but what are the purposes of having dentures?
So your teeth do a lot. And I call it teeth, the structures in your mouth. And that's got to do with your gum, your teeth, some of the soft tissue there. You do a lot with that. A lot of things you don't think about. Obviously aesthetics, you want to make sure you got a pretty smile. But part of it is speech. Sounds like the TH sound, the F sound. You need teeth.
Yeah, you don't think about that. Somebody can say, hey, Jim, I just lost one tooth, no big deal, and then they'll come back and they'll say, wait a minute, I'm not talking right. And so then they get back and maybe look at what we would call a partial or something like that.
A partial, so a denture is a full set of teeth, and a partial essentially is less than a full set, so partial set of teeth.
Okay.
You call them partial denture, we just call them partial for short.
Right. Now, you once told me that dentures, let's talk about facial tissue, speech, stuff like that. Educate me a little bit on why they're so important to have if you're in that situation.
So, part of when you're a child learning to speak, you're learning how to use things that you've never used before. Well, when things change, people have a set of teeth and they lose them, those structures that they're used to, placing their tongue behind their teeth and saying like a TH sound,
right,
placing their teeth and stopping the airflow for an F sound, like when you don't have that there, all of a sudden speech patterns are totally different.
So it's a relearning process though when you go through that.
And so, okay, so if we couldn't save the teeth, you have to lose them and we replace them somehow, all of a sudden I put something in your mouth that's not natural anymore.
Right.
It's foreign, and you learn to use it just like you learn to speak, and thankfully you already know how to talk, and so you can pick up fairly quickly, but now there's a piece of plastic in there where there wasn't.
Let me ask you something that occurred to me. I was driving over here, so I'm going to ask this to Nick. If you have a full set of dentures, is it a myth when people say, hey, look, I'm home free, I have a full set of dentures, I'm never going to have any more dental problems?
You get that a lot, and that's the exact opposite. In reality, you trade one set of problems for another. And just because you don't have teeth doesn't mean you don't have teeth problems, okay? Teeth problems are now denture problems. So you've got the dentures have to fit and stay in place in your mouth, and things change over time. So then you've got to keep up with the change.
Right.
These things are plastic. They wear out. They've also got the things we've talked about before, and that is you can still get stuff going on in your mouth that you need checked out. So you've still got to see a dentist.
And keep up with the cleaning and all that. Before
Right.
time runs out, let me ask you about implants. Is that the latest thing, and do you suggest to people they do that rather than dentures, or what?
Well, that's we could go anywhere with that. But in reality, the dentures, a conventional style denture is just like we talked about, a piece of plastic that used to suction to stay in place. And now we've got these great things, implants, where we can anchor these things to your jaw. And that way, when you're moving, you're opening your mouth, you're chewing, you're doing all this stuff, you don't have to worry about your teeth falling out, you don't have to worry about them sliding around. Now all of a sudden they're anchored, and you can use them more like your teeth.
More expensive.
Generally, like you're buying a car, you want AM, FM radio, power door locks,
Right.
windows.
Right.
You're going to spend some more money.
All right, good stuff. I always like to find out more about these topics and dental health tips. Up on screen, www.wsdentist.com. I hope you folks will check that out because Dr. Nick Capar always has some great information, and I appreciate you stopping by and doing that.
Yes, sir.
You
Good to be
take
here.
care. All right. We'll be right back after this. Now, on Triad Today, I was just looking at this book. It's called Dread and Delight. It's my life story. No, not really. It's this is by a lovely lady. Emily Staley is with us, and she's not here she didn't come here to hawk the book, but I'm just going to mention it anyway, and I think we have a graphic of it up on the screen. Next to me, Emily Staley. She's curator of exhibitions at UNCG's Weatherspoon Art Museum. I'm just going to go ahead and ask you real quick before we get into the exhibits. What is this book about, very quickly?
It is about artists who have looked at classical fairy tales, so think Cinderella, Snow White, Little Red Riding Hood, ones that you know,
Right.
and update them or taken them apart in a way that looks at our life today.
So they're doing art based on their interpretations of the old fairy tale.
Exactly.
And all sorts of art.
All sorts of art.
That's interesting. All right. Now, very quickly, describe your role as curator. Some people will wonder what that title means, and what do you do?
So I get the best job in the world. I get to research art and pick out what's going to go in the galleries,
Oh,
and
neat.
then write the labels that you see on the wall with it, write the books that go with it, put it all together.
You know, UNCG, and I'm a alumnus of UNCG too, you know, a lot of times we used to say that the general public doesn't really understand how great Weatherspoon is, and because maybe some people think it's just for students and faculty, because, you know, some things are restricted and you have to be a member of a faculty, whatever. But that's not so with Weatherspoon.
No, we are open to everybody. So we're there for faculty and students, but we're there for the community too. We're on the edge of campus. We've even got free parking, and we are open Tuesday through Sunday free, always.
I just think that's great. All right, now let's get to it, because this sort of ties in with the Dread and Delight book, and that is this fairy tale exhibit that you guys emailed me about. Tell me about that.
So same title as the book, Dread and Delight, Fairy Tales in an Anxious World. There are 7 different stories in the show, all by the Brothers Grimm, and then all kinds of different art. So sculptures, paintings, photographs, video. One of our sort of showstopper pieces is a nearly life-size Cinderella carriage.
Oh, see, now I want folks at home to see this. Instead of us just talking about it, I want you to watch some footage, there's some music behind it, and these are people putting together the carriage, Cinderella's carriage exhibit, and it's made of what, rock candy?
Covered in crystallized rock candy.
Okay, watch them put together. That's just fascinating footage to see that put together. But I know you probably spend millions of dollars on security. You don't want people stealing artwork. Are you afraid somebody's going to come in and start eating these exhibits?
We've got a nice big riser underneath it and some stanchions out around there. So we're going to try and keep everyone at bay.
You can't eat rock candy on that.
Yeah.
That's just fascinating. Now, is there an admission charge to Weatherspoon? I've been to some big galleries around the country. Sometimes you walk in, you get in for free, but then they'll have a certain exhibit that you have to pay for or whatever.
Nope. Walk right in.
Just walk in. I'm just curious, what attracted you to this field? I mean, we didn't rehearse this or anything, but I know you said you came from Washington State. What attracted you to want to work in this field?
You know, I've loved art since I was a little kid. And I figured out very early on I wasn't any good at making it.
You can't, that's like me. My dad was an artist, but I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. So.
Right. But I can read about it and learn about it and then share that with other people. And that's the
You have a
best
good
thing.
eye for it. I mean, if you didn't, you wouldn't obviously. I mean, here we have this book, which I'm going to go ahead and plug again on screen. We have that graphic on there, Dread and Delight. It's just a great book. I want you to get it. You go to the museum and get it. And as Emily said, you know, we were talking off camera, you can get it online, but don't do that. Go into the museum and get it. And you'll even sign it for them, right?
Sure.
Okay, that's good.
Absolutely.
Up on screen, the information I want you to see is www.weatherspoon.uncg.edu. And for the radio listening audience, I'll say it again, weatherspoon.uncg.edu. It will tell you all about what's going on at Weatherspoon Art Museum. I'm just so proud of you and what you're doing, and it's a fascinating job.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with everything.
Thanks so much.
Don't let anybody eat that carriage.
We won't.
Yeah. All right, Dread and Delight. Go get this, is great. Go to the museum. We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, time for the infamous roundtable on my right, but always the political left, that outstanding award-winning journalist, broadcaster, Ogie Overman. Next to him is the most powerful woman in the world. Ursula Dudley Oglesby, president of Dudley Beauty Products. She's also an attorney, which is why I don't mess with her, Ogie.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I'm intimidated.
Yeah, and speaking of being intimidated, Keith Granberry's here. Of course, you saw him earlier in the program talking about getting out the vote. Keith Granberry, founder of Helping Hands Consultants. All right, guys and gals, let's start with this one. The state of California is trying to curb gun violence by making it more difficult to purchase ammunition. Would you like to see every state follow California's lead on that? Ogie.
I give them an A for effort, Jim, but I don't think they're really addressing the problem head on. Let's go ahead and I'm sticking with my belief that it should be registered just like cars. Have a license, register your firearms, and take a test every 5 years, and just like an automobile.
Ammunition, Ursula.
I like the creativity. If we can't get rid of, the excess guns, but maybe we can control the ammunition, I like it.
Key?
Terrible idea. I mean, if they got guns, they're going to be able to purchase ammunition legally or illegally.
You think they'll just go to the black market?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they need to focus on the guns. Focus on guns. That's what you have to focus on.
All right, when ex-felons go before the Florida board that restores voting rights, now this is a board, not a parole board. These are people already out working in the community, but they want their voting rights restored. Now in Florida, they have a board, and the governor sits on it. Now one of the questions the board member asks these people is, do you go to church? If they say no, they don't get their voting rights back. Now should church attendance be a prerequisite for restoring voting rights of an ex-con? Ogie.
No, if you've paid your debt to society, this prerequisite is exactly the same as it is for everybody else. Plus, isn't that a bit of a slippery slope saying that, well, maybe you need to be a Christian to vote, period?
That's where they were
Are we
going with
going
that.
toward a theocracy or what?
Yeah, this one board member would also say, what church do you go to if they say that? Ursula.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's ridiculous. I don't know how they get around the Constitution and the Equal Protection Clause. I mean, I don't understand that at all.
Well, it's an all-powerful board that they're not reporting to anybody. It's the governor's board, and they can decide who they want to give the voting rights back to or not. Keith, what do you think?
Terrible idea. I mean, there are a lot of people who aren't Christians in Florida. People should have, and once you've paid your debt to society, there should be no prerequisite for you getting your voting rights back. I think that's the craziest thing. That's keeping people out. And we know that the majority of people who are being incarcerated are minorities. So that's cutting back minorities from voting, and is wrong.
Yeah, and now it's changing the gears here a little bit. This is a kind of a different one. We've attacked this topic before, but not like this. A charter school in Georgia is now asking parental consent to paddle students who misbehave. Now it's optional. They'll go to each parent, they let them sign a sheet. Can we paddle your child if he misbehaves? Now Ursula has children, so I'm interested to see what she says, but are you guys okay with a return to corporal punishment in schools? Ogie.
No, I think that's headed in the wrong direction. I've been an advocate of eliminating corporal punishment back when it was very uncool to advocate that, so no.
Ursula.
I agree. Absolutely not will I allow my child to be paddled by someone else. I think there's too much discrimination already. There's too much racism, and I just think that it's going to be doled out very indiscriminately, so no.
Gee.
Terrible idea. And then not only, even if you paddle and your parents say it's okay, what if the child calls the police? How are you going to deal with that?
Yeah. You would probably call the police on your
I
parents,
wouldn't.
wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't. I'd call the police on the principal.
Yeah, that's right. Several of our state universities participate in this North Carolina Promise program, and they now offer tuition caps of $500 for in-state students. I got a couple bifurcated question here. Should all public colleges cap their tuition fees? And two, even better, should state colleges be tuition free? Ogie.
I don't think we're going to see everybody going tuition free. That's got some problems financially. But I would also, if you're going to do the colleges, let's face it, every kid doesn't need to go to college. Honestly, I mean, that might be unpopular to say, but go ahead and have the trade schools and vocational schools. Cap it there so these kids can learn a trade.
Ursula.
It's a nice idea. I just don't think it's very feasible. I mean, as a business owner, I don't know how you make sure that the school is able to stay up to standards, gets great quality professors, books, etc., on $500. I don't see how it's financially feasible.
That's right.
Yeah.
Keith.
There are billions of dollars doled out for stuff within our government that makes no sense. Why not spend that money, putting it in the school system so kids who can't afford it go to school, kids who don't want to go to a university go get a trade so everyone gets an education.
So you're advocating for reallocation of funds, which
Absolutely.
would answer the problem that Ursula brought up too.
Yes.
All right, new polling data shows that the Democratic congressional candidates are preferred over Republican candidates by 50% to 38%. Now, is that going to hold up, do you think? Is it likely that Democrats will take control of Congress in November? Ogie.
Well, I'm guardedly optimistic, but the worst thing that can happen is that if we get complacent and think, well, we got this in the bag, please vote. Just, you've got no excuse this time.
All right,
Vote.
Ursula.
I would say the same thing, vote. I don't know if it's going to hold out or not. We had all these polls before, and look at where we are now. I would tell everybody your vote counts, and
Keith.
vote.
There's a secret. There's a silent group out here who's been voting since President Trump got into office that aren't saying anything. You have to be very leery of that group. But I do think the Democrats will take control of the
I
House.
went into, I'm like Keith. He and I went in and voted 4 times for Trump. We went to just precinct to precinct.
I did not vote.
Okay, well,
Finally,
times.
no, wait a minute. Yeah. Now, finally,
I voted once.
The Smithsonian Institute says that John Quincy Adams was skinny dipping in the Potomac River every day. He was widely considered one of our most moral presidents, having been the first president to really advocate against slavery. Quickly, guys and gals, do you think Donald Trump would be a better president if he skinny dipped every day? Okay.
Oh, I can't get that mental picture out of my eyes.
Ursula.
My eyes are ruined.
Ursula.
Are there sharks out there? I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Keith, skinny dipping.
I do not want to see that. I don't think most of America wants to see that
All
either.
right. Well, that's all the time we have for these skinny dippers. Oh, except for this. A New Mexico woman has been arrested for harassing her ex-boyfriend by calling him over 70,000 times in 1 week and texting him 40,000 times. Said the woman, "I can't help myself. I just love Keith Granberry."
Now, why did you have to put that
all
in
of
there?
us- for
I
all of
knew
us-
you
yeah.
always get me like
For all,
that.
for all of us here on Try Today, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next